In the early hours of September 1, 1859, a silent but powerful force began to make its way towards Earth. The sun, that distant yet ever-present ball of fire and light, unleashed one of its most powerful solar flares ever recorded in history, a coronal mass ejection (CME) of unimaginable scale. The world was on the cusp of a new era, an era defined by the spread of electricity and communication technologies. But on that fateful day, as Earth felt the full force of this cosmic event, everything changed. The sun attacked the Earth in a way no one had ever imagined, sending a violent wave of charged particles that would set the stage for one of the most dramatic and terrifying events in the history of human technology. It was a time of rapid progress. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, and a new world was being built, one powered by steam, iron, and the first flickers of electricity. The telegraph, a revolutionary form of communication, had just begun to knit together the world in ways that had been previously unimaginable. In cities like London, New York, and Paris, telegraph wires stretched across vast distances, carrying news and messages at lightning speed. It was a time of hope and possibility, a time when humanity was beginning to believe that it could conquer the world, one invention at a time. Yet all of this progress was about to be threatened by a force far beyond human control. When the flare erupted from the sun, no one knew it was coming. The solar wind carrying it was fast, too fast to be detected by the limited technology of the time. It traveled through the vacuum of space, passing by planets and comets, eventually racing towards Earth. As the CME reached the planet, it collided with the Earth's magnetic field, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. And when it hit, it was as though the world had been thrown into chaos. At first, the effects were subtle. In distant cities like London, Paris, and New York, people were unaware of the storm that was unfolding above them. But as the first whispers of trouble began to circulate, they quickly escalated into something much worse. The telegraph lines, which had become the arteries of communication for the growing world, began to malfunction. Sparks flew from the telegraph machines, and in some cases telegraph wires literally caught fire. It was as if the machines had come alive with a violent energy that no one understood. Operators in the telegraph offices, who had long been accustomed to the steady hum of their devices, were now faced with the frightening reality that the technology they depended on was being torn apart by forces beyond their comprehension. In some places, telegraph operators reported seeing strange, glowing auroras in the night sky, colors of red, green, and purple dancing in the heavens, a celestial display that was as beautiful as it was unnerving. These auroras, known as the Northern Lights, had been seen before, but never like this. The intensity of the colors was unlike anything anyone had witnessed. And as the auroras glowed in the skies, the telegraph wires continued to burn and spark, as if the very fabric of reality itself was being twisted by the power of the solar storm. But the most terrifying part of this story was not the fires that consumed telegraph offices, nor the strange auroras in the sky. It was the unknown, the sense of helplessness that people felt as they watched their technology fall apart. The world had never experienced anything like this before. The sun, that source of life and energy, had turned on them, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The impacts were not just limited to the telegraph systems. In some parts of the world, electrical equipment began to malfunction. It was as if the Earth had been jolted from its axis, and the very systems that had brought humanity into the modern age were now failing. For many, it felt as if the future had come crashing down in an instant. The hope that had once been fueled by progress and innovation was now replaced with a profound sense of vulnerability. Humanity, for all its achievements, was reminded of just how small it truly was in the grand scheme of the universe.
Hey there! If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our exciting adventures. Now let's get back to the mystery.
As the days passed, the sun's wrath continued to be felt. The storm lasted for several days, but the damage had already been done. The telegraph system, which had been one of the most important technologies of the time, was left in ruins. For those who had relied on it for communication, it was as if the world had suddenly gone dark. The news, which once traveled at the speed of light, now moved at a crawl. And in that darkness, people began to realize just how fragile their world had become. The aftermath of the solar storm was profound. People were left wondering whether the sun's fury was a warning, a sign that humanity's reliance on technology had made them vulnerable to forces they couldn't control. And if the sun could strike like this once, could it happen again? Was there a possibility that future storms would be even more powerful, more devastating? These questions haunted scientists and thinkers alike, as they began to grasp the full implications of what had happened. Yet, as devastating as the 1859 solar storm was, it did not mark the end of the human spirit. Despite the damage, people rebuilt. They adapted. They learned. And in many ways, the solar storm of 1859 became a turning point in human history. It was a reminder that, for all the power of human innovation, there were still forces beyond our control. And it was these forces, more than anything else, that shaped the course of history. In the years that followed, humanity's understanding of the sun and its potential to impact life on Earth deepened. Scientists began to study the sun more closely, developing new tools and technologies to monitor solar activity. The knowledge gained from the 1859 storm led to new methods of protecting Earth from the dangers of solar flares, as experts learned how to predict and mitigate the impacts of future solar events. But despite all this knowledge, there was still something humbling about the storm of 1859. It was a reminder that no matter how far humanity has come, there are still forces in the universe that remain beyond our control. And in the face of these forces, all we can do is watch and hope that we are prepared when the next storm comes. The story of the 1859 solar storm is more than just a tale of technological failure. It is a story of human resilience, a story of people who, despite facing an unprecedented crisis, continued to move forward. It is a story of how we learned to live with the unknown, how we learned to adapt to forces we couldn't control, and how we came to understand the vast and unpredictable nature of the universe. So, could it happen again? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. Solar storms are a natural part of the sun's cycle, and while we have made significant progress in understanding them, we are still vulnerable. The question is no longer whether a solar storm will strike again, but when. And when it does, we will be ready, armed with knowledge, innovation, and the spirit that has always driven humanity to overcome the impossible. The sun may attack again, but we will face it with the same courage, determination, and ingenuity that have defined us throughout history. And in the end, that is the greatest triumph of all.